This is problem number 13 out of the XYZ homework in section 2.2. And here's what's going on. A publisher of a recently released nonfiction book expects that over the next 20 months after its release, over the first 20 months after its release, the monthly profit can be approximated with this function right here. Now here's what we're going to do. Where P is in thousands of dollars and T is the number of months from the time of release. So at time of release, T is 0, and as the months go by, T increases, and P is the profit that this publisher is going to realize on this sale of those books. Now part A says derive a model that gives a model is just a function. Here's a model. This is a model of the profit. We want a model that gives the marginal profit. Okay, now here's what we need to know. Marginal implies the derivative. So we want the marginal profit, so we're going to take the derivative of this profit function. So in part A, here's our part A, here's our function. The profit depends on time like this. 80 times the number of months minus 20 times the number of months squared over the number of months squared plus 20. Now this is a quotient. So to get the derivative, we are going to use the quotient rule. The quotient rule goes like this. Here's how I remember it. It's the bottom times the derivative of the top minus the top times the derivative of the bottom all over the bottom squared. So let's write this out here. We are going to get, the bottom, which is, quantity, t squared plus 20, times the derivative of the top. Now, I'm going to write this all out. So it's going to be, here's the top, 80t minus 20t squared, but I want the derivative of that. So I've got the bottom times the derivative of the top, and I'll take the derivative in the next piece here, minus the top, 80t minus 20t squared, times the derivative of the bottom. Now the bottom is t squared plus 20, but I want the derivative of that, so we'll actually take that derivative in the next step, all over the bottom squared. So t squared plus 20 squared. Let's actually take these derivatives now. So it's going to be the bottom, that t squared plus 20, times the derivative of the top. Now, right in here, what's that derivative? Well, from here, we're going to get 80, and from here, we're going to get negative 2 times negative 20 is negative 40t, right? So we are going to get 80 minus 40t. So here's the bottom times the derivative of the top minus the top there, 80t minus 20t squared, times the derivative of the bottom. Okay, now, that's this part right here. Bring the 2 down as a multiplier, decrease it by 1, so we'll get 2t. The derivative of 20 is just a 0. So right here, we're just going to get 2t all over that bottom quantity squared. Now I've got to multiply this out. So I'm going to do it like this. First and first, the outer product, then the inner product, and then the last and the last. Kind of FOIL it if you like that. So let's do that. So the first and the first will give us 80t squared. The outer product right here, that's going to give us negative 40t cubed. And then, let's see, the inner product, 20 times 80, that's plus 1600. And then the last and the last is going to be minus 800t. So this is going to be 2t times 80t. That's 160t squared, but I've got a minus out here. So it's minus, let's get the same color here. So it's minus 160t squared. And then 2t, right here, 2t times negative 20t squared is negative 40t cubed, but I got that minus here. So it's minus minus is plus 40t cubed. And don't forget that denominator. T squared plus 20 squared. All right, so what happens here? In the top, the negative 40t cubed and that 40t cubed are going to cancel. So what are we left with here now? I got that 80t squared Now I'm going to follow it over here. I've got that 80t squared minus 160t squared. That's going to give us negative 80t squared. And then I've got, what else have we got here? The 1600 and the minus 800t. So I'm going to write it like this. So I'll get minus 800t plus 1600 all over that denominator, t squared plus 20 squared. And you know, negative 80, negative 800, and 1600, there's an 80 in each one of those. So here's where we are over here on the right now. So p prime of t is equal to, I'm going to take out that negative 80. And I'm left with this. T squared, if I take 80 out of here, I'm left with plus 10t, and then plus 20, right? 80 into 1600 is 20, all over that denominator squared, t squared plus 20 squared. So this is our answer to part A. We have derived a model now that gives us the marginal profit of the book, marginal being the derivative. Now, for part B, what we want to do is compute, what are we looking for in part B up here? Specify the expected marginal profit 5 months after release. So we want to compute the marginal profit right here when P is equal to 5. Right, so I'm just going to put a 5 in there. So what I'm looking for is this. Compute P prime of 5. So it's just putting a 5 in there. It'll negative 80 times 5 squared plus 10 times 5 plus 20 all over 5 squared plus 20, and all of that gets squared. Now I did this on my calculator by typing in this. So I typed in negative 80 parentheses and then 5 squared plus 10 times 5 plus 20. Now close that parentheses. That closes off the top. Divided by parentheses 5 squared plus 20, close, and square that. And when I did that, I got P prime of 5 being negative 2.172839 ... but we're supposed to round to 2 decimal places. How about this? P prime of 5 is equal to negative 2.17. So I want to interpret that, but to do that, we're going to need some room here. So let me go to the next page here. Here's what we got. We got P prime of 5 equaling negative 2.17. And let's see what it means. Here's how I'm going to interpret this. I'm going to say this. If the number of months after the release of the book increases by 1 from 5 to 6, right, because we're at 5, then the profit is going to decrease because they're negative by about 2.71, and the whole thing's in thousands of dollars. So it'll decrease about $1,000. So you're out 5 months, you go 1 more month, you're going to realize maybe like $2.17,000 less in profit. And I'm getting that by doing this. This is really what? Negative 2.17 over 1, right, as a fraction. So as the number of months changes, this is the change in our profit. Now part C says, how's the profit going to change 10 months after the release of the book? All right, so all I did, I computed P prime of 10. So just like I did with 5, but instead of 5, I put in 10, and I got this. I got negative 1. And so what does it mean? Just go back up here and replace the 5 with a 10, and it will say this. If the number of months after the release of the book increases by 1 from 10 months to 11 months, the profit will decrease by about what? $1,000. So from month 10 to month 11, this company is going to lose about $1,000 on the profit. Now, here's our part D. After which month does the profit start to decrease steadily? All right, so we know after 5 months it starts to decrease, it's decreasing. After 10 months it's decreasing. So actually, when does it start to decrease? All right, so we're asking this question here. This is part D. Okay, when is P prime of t negative, right? Because a negative derivative, that's a negative slope, and negative slope goes down, so we've got a decrease. So it's a negative slope. So we want to know when is P prime of t, which is equal to, remember what we got for our p prime? It was this, negative 80 times t squared plus 10t plus 20 all over t squared plus 20 squared. When is that going to be negative? So here's what has to happen here. Look what we've got. The denominator in this fraction is always positive, right? Because you're squaring something, so it's always positive. So the denominator is positive. The numerator, look what we have here. This is a negative. I'm going to write this all out here. We have a negative. Oh, that's not a good color. All right, so let's go with this one here. I've got a negative times something over a positive, and I want the whole thing to be negative. So what does this have to be? I'm going to have a negative times what? A positive. Negative times positive would be negative over positive, right? What I've got here now is I've got a negative over a positive being negative. All right, so that means that this part right here has to be negative. So t squared plus 10t plus 20 has to be negative. Now, we have ways of solving this, right? We can use that number line approach. But then that's pretty complicated, and we have some technology for this. So here's what I think you should do. Why don't you go to Wolfram Alpha, and we've been there before, right? Go to Wolfram Alpha and type in this. Type in solve. Okay, so you can type it in like this. Negative 80 parentheses, now I'm capturing the top here, negative 80 times t squared plus 10t plus 20 divided by the denominator, t squared plus 20, that squared, and I wanted that to be less than 0. Let me write it so you can read it here. Squared less than 0. Now, Wolfram Alpha comes back with two numbers. One is this one, t is less than negative 5 minus 3 square roots of 5. But this is a negative number, right? This is negative minus a negative, that's negative. We don't want any negative times, so we're going to exclude that one. It also comes back with this one, negative 5 plus 3 square roots of 5. Now, on my calculator, I found that to be this number right here, negative 1.7. All right, so what it means is that after 1.7 months, okay, after 1.7 months, I'm sorry, that's positive, right? After positive minus. So after 1.7 months, p prime of t is negative. That means the profit is decreasing. Now, 1.7, that's close to 2. All right, so an approximate answer might be this. For sure, after 2 months, this thing steadily decreases. Profit steadily decreases. That's a little bit more accurate, but probably 2 is okay too.